Hello and welcome to the GDSL quarterfinals. Here in the top right corner, we have Team GrumpyKittens facing up against the bottom left. We have Team JEMIOŁA. It looks like we're gonna have some fun with this one because we have a triple mirror match. We have Zerg, Terran, and Protoss, other way around. Protoss and Terran versus their mirrors. Spawning first, we have our Zerg. It looks like Team GrumpyKittens Zerg, the blue Zerg, has elected not to spawn any units, which is rather unusual. Not spawning units means they're not contesting the middle. Not only does it jeopardize your central, your main bunker, which is something you desperately want to keep around, but more importantly, it gives your opponents free access to the middle income bonus. Middle income bonus comes in at 1 mineral per second, which is extremely important, especially in a mirror match, where even a single Zergling or a single Marine more than your opponent can be the difference between winning and losing here. It looks like we have a 50-50 ratio of Marines and Reapers versus a much higher ratio of Marines to Reapers. Who wins? Spoiler alerts, you don't want to have too many Reapers mixed into your lineup there. In the mirror, Reapers are important. Reapers and Marines beats straight up Marines. However, too many Reapers and you end up losing your wave, as we could see happened right there. It looks like we're gonna have a similar scenario here where our blue Zerg actually went for tier 2. It's basically guaranteed losing his wave, so that's gonna be more middle income bonus for the left team here. Team JEMIOŁA. Looks like our Protoss player also went tier 2, which is basically conceding this wave as well. Coming in with the Disruptors and 2 Immortals. Immortals are what you want for a Protoss versus Protoss, at least a significant amount of them. However, Stalkers just kind of beat Immortals until you get a sufficient amount of Immortals out. Turns out Immortals are expensive, and 2 Immortals just kinda loses to a full row of Stalkers. And for it looks like orange. Yeah, bottom left is ahead, and looks like they're not gonna be changing that anytime soon. Which is not good for Team GrumpyKittens there. So here we have. Ooh, what are you spending your money on? You didn't get more things. Ah, he's spending his money on teching up. Okay, so our Zerg player is teching up to try to match the other Zerg player's blue Zerg's tech level. That is entirely understandable. Something that's interesting about Zerg in standard direct strike is Zerg tends to favor more technology in later game, just because they are strong in the late game. Basically, all the other races could beat them up in the early game. So yeah, Zerg are kind of fond of hitting that tier 2 tech. Oh, that's really bad. That Disruptor just slaughtered a huge chunk of Orange's units. Which means in this mirror match, a wave that he used to win very handily is just not there anymore. Now Purple Terran is pushing on the turret. This all off the back of a swing. Top right team managed to stack on their own bunker. Nearly lost their bunker in the process, but they slammed back really hard. Now there are lurkers out on the field. Cyan Zerg has managed to get his tech level and to get the lurkers out. I don't think the lurkers are going to win this. It's not quite enough. He needs a few more to finish off all those splash down units. The Immortals are out for yellow Protoss now. It might not be enough, just because, yeah, the Zerg leak, it's a little bit too much. I think that would have won if... Oh, he was saving the Disruptor shots for the Terran. Oh, that's just so much value. It looks like the top right team is just so much more coordinated for their shots they need to take. They're saving their Disruptors, even if it's going to cost them their direct wave. It's saving the Disruptors for the actual much more damage-dealing shots against the Terran. It's got Zerg units leaking into the Protoss already. This is brutal. For the first early game, top team was losing, but bottom is kind of thrown it away here. It looks like they've lost on the technology front. We've got a Void Ray out versus Hydralisks, which is not something you really want. There's oh, the 2 Immortals go down. Oh, that's just so brutal. And then in come the Zealots to clean up. Oh, that's just terrifying. And he micros the Disruptor balls to land on the Terran shots, to land on the Terran Marines. All those clumped up bio units. Oh, that's just amazing. In comes Purple with his line of ooh, it just keeps chewing through everything. At least these lurkers here will get some good value. They are going to severely mess up that bio ball. Yep, there goes everything. But then it's just 4 unguarded Reapers versus an entire now Mutalisk line. I really appreciate the call to go Mutalisk here. It looked like Blue wanted to go Mutalisk early and just try to do like a, I'm going to call it a Muta cheese, just a surprise Mutas, but that got caught off guard by the amount of Queens that Cyan opened with. But now that Blue has the opportunity, going Mutas is quite nice here. Mostly because Mutas require a very specific response out of their opponents. A Protoss, for example, with their Mass Stalkers and Immortal just does not survive Mutas, so if Mutas leak into the Protoss wave, well, the Protoss now has to get some very specific units to handle those Mutalisk, and those anti-Mutalisk units will die to anything in this regular mirror match. So it's not a great place for the Protoss to be. And now that there's a lot of Mutas on the field, those 4 Queens are not going to stand up. In the Zerg's mirror match, in case they do get lined up again, it's Lurkers versus Mutas. Like, that's not something you have to look out for. You do have to look out for the Infestor. Infestor for the Zerg can handle the Mutas, or at least is a good start to them. Typically, you want more than just the Infestor. But here you can see the fungal snare, grabbing a bunch of units, dealing a good amount of damage. He's going to want a few more of those for sure, as well as something like Hydras to finish off the Mutas. Hydras are Mutas of his own, are a good call. The Void Ray Stalker Immortal out of Yellow Protoss is really not gonna cut it versus the Mutas. The Mutas will just stack on that and blow it up all day. Oh, the Disruptors. Oh, the Disruptors. They're so satisfying. Like, I know it hurts so much to be in that position. I've been in that spot before. But my lord, is it satisfying to watch the waves get absolutely melted. This is actually a really good spot for bottom left Sarah in this particular engagement. Siege tanks sieging first. Lurkers just having a good time slaughtering the Terran wave. This is about as good of a stack as bottom team is going to get. Let's see how many good hits they get. Looks like a kind of a not quite whiffed, but not a great fungal growth. We'll see if you see this is the thing. Those Mutalisks are going to slaughter those Void Rays, and sure, a couple of those the Immortals and ground units might kill off the Hydras and Roaches, but look what the Mutas are doing. They've pushed everything back. They've killed basically all the important units before the next Protoss shows up, and in come the Disruptors wiping the entire Terran wave, and suddenly you have nothing but Immortals left. Oh, this is so brutal. This is so brutal. It's like they're not even trying to fight their own waves. They're fighting their opponents in next waves in anticipation that they're going to win. And it's working. In come the fungal growth. That's a good amount of damage. Disruptor actually managing to get a second shot off. This is not a good place for bottom team to be at all. And here come the Mutas. You start working on a second wave, and let's get a nice hit on the fungals, hitting most of the back line and those Hydras. Really needs to make sure that those land on the Mutas for sure. Yeah, it looks like the Lurkers are doing Lurker things and basically slaughtering everything. But here's a perfect example. Here you can see the Mutas separated from the rest of the army are still winning. They've cleared out all the Protoss Void Rays, which is going Void Rays for some reason. I'm guessing the yellow Protoss is trying to build a bit of a stopgap. He doesn't want to go Phoenixes, for example, or Storm, because he knows that Phoenixes and Storm are quite poor versus the Protoss opponent. But if he doesn't get something that can shoot up, he's just gonna lose to the Void to the Mutas. Now those are some delicious looking fungals, especially with lurkers underneath, just to finish them off. Yeah, with the Liberators just free to reign above like that, that's the end. That's how you know the game is coming to a close. That was a beautiful fungal. If only he had a second or even third one to follow up. Yeah, he's getting some Void Rays out now. He's got the +2 attack on the Void Rays, which helps, but it's not going to be enough. Especially with Hydras on the field, which do terrible things to Void Rays. And the Marines do actually clear out the Mutas pretty well, but it doesn't matter because they're Immortals on the base. This is over. GG. GG is thrown out. And we're off to round 2, ladies and gentlemen. In the upper right corner, we have Team GrumpyKittens, and in the bottom left, it's JEMIOŁA. So we're going to see this round 2 out of 5. This is a best of 5. No spoilers toward the outcome, but we'll get to see some rather fun events here. A common strategy, you've seen me do this many times. You just have a Zergling go run across the center. This is done by a player who does not want to invest heavily into the early game, but still wants to make an effort to attempt to sneakily take the center line. Indeed, this time he is successful, claiming that middle bonus for himself and his team. Looks like our opponent on the top right is going to see that Zergling and is going to react by putting down some Marines of his own. Looks like he knows that he's going to be building from this point on. In a strange twist, our Terran teammate here, our Terran player here, is not going to be spawning anything. Typically, players will want to spawn something every round just to maintain that middle income bonus. Looks like he's going to give up on the middle income here, and rather the Protoss from bottom left is going to be sending out a bunch of Zealots. This is rather odd play from GrumpyKittens over here. They've elected to not spawn anything first wave, period, and it's going to cost them a little bit of HP on their bunker. If the yellow player, or the yellow Terran, had decided to build units, they basically would have gotten that bunker for free. But it looks like yellow has decided to go with a bunch of Hellbats, which is an interesting decision. The purple Terran is attacking the bottom team's photon cannon. We're playing a bunch of tech chicken here, as we like to call it. And out come the Mutas. Alright, I think what happened here is the yellow Terran came to the realization that his direct opponent is going to be Zerg, and has decided, hey, if my opponent's going to be Zerg, I'm going to just open mass Hellbat because I want to deal with Ling Bane opportunities. But the blue Zerg instead decided to just rush straight Mutas, and that's resulted in Mutas flying free, basically wiping out 2 waves all by themselves. And considering there's no anti-air for the bottom team at all. These Mutas are sitting on the photon cannon. It's down to half HP and dropping. It will hold this time. But the Ling Bane crashes into top team's Terran Bio Ball, and that's a mess. Oh boy. Looks like yellow Terran is supplementing his Hellbats with some Widow Mines. An excellent decision versus the Mutalisks. Especially considering there's not all that many Mutas out just yet. And no detection. Those Widow Mines with a quick barrel are going to land. And they slam those grenades into the Muta flock. Oh! 7 HP apiece. In a scan, a small flock of Mutas survive, but all of them have such a small amount of HP. This one sentry is literally tickling them to death. It took out 2 Mutas, just finishing them off. That's a rough world to live in. Here comes the Ling Bane again, but this time it's slamming into Archons. Archon's a little bit more capable of surviving Ling Bane. In fact, I think These Archons, this guy's sitting at 12 kills. The Archons alone clean off the entire Zerg Ling Bane wave. That's brutal. This is going to be an easy cleanup of the bottom team's Photon Cannon. Miraculously, all those mines get their shots off and wipe out basically everything from the top team's units there. And I think, yeah, that's a full cleanup. This is gonna be still not entirely offset. Oh, that's why the mutas weren't coming out. The blue Zerg has managed to rush tier 3, get the ultras out, and that's just a move city. Oh, that's real rough. It looks like the orange Protoss has decided to much more quickly react to the mutas and just start really pumping out the Archons. So that might make the difference here to hold the line. But they're still going to leave bottom team offset into their territory. Every time the engagement happens, they're fighting on their side, which means top team gets all the bonus economy in the world. A couple manually casted disruptors just to get the shields off of base, but the Nexus holds, taking not but a small scratch. The Widow Mines slaughtering. Good God, just slaughtering Purple Terran's wave. That's a hard wipe right there. We're actually seeing some ghosts out of the Yellow Terran, likely to help clean up some of those ultras. Orange Protoss adding in even more Archons. Definitely a good choice versus the mutas. Now has his Zealots in the back. Definitely a good choice versus the ultras. You do not want to let those Zealots go in first. That's just a rough experience. Probably going to want to add in some Immortals, but of course, very rough to add in Immortals when there are mutas on the field. The Ling Bane still really not doing much, but at least now there are Hydras on the field. They will actually clean up all those Archons, which is quite good. Quite good for the Zerg. And here comes the Widow Mines again. Anti-armor missiles blanketing Yellow Terran's wave, but there's really not much left here for either side. And in a near form of mutually assured destruction, the Widow Mines just clean up everything but a small squad, not even a squad, just a small couple of Marines and Marauders. Up to 5 Archons now. The orange Protoss is quite handily able to clean up. Did he sell his mutas? No, he just spread them out more. Okay. Yeah, those mutas are not performing very well versus the high numbers of Archons that we're seeing now. Oh, Disruptors is such a good unit. Chunking away. Yeah, but that was actually enough. Those are some beautiful hits with the Disruptors, and that was enough to leave the Hydras just completely sundered. The Archons able to finish them off. This is not a good spot for bottom team to be in. Top team is just rolling, and they're ahead in tech and in economy at this point. Sure, some of them don't even have their first economy upgrade, looking at you, Zerg. But that's fine. That's probably where he wants to be honest. Like, they can just close out this game very shortly. They're living off of the middle income bonus, and it looks like that's not going to be changing anytime soon. You get their first Immortals out for the bottom team's Yellow Protoss, and it is enough to clean up the Ultras, and the Archon is enough to clean up the mutas. So the Protoss is performing well versus the Zerg offset, but yikes. Now we have carriers on the field. Hydras are pretty good versus carriers, but really he's going to want Corruptors in there. And of course, Corruptors not very good versus the Bio Ball that he's got to push into. Also not terribly well versus mutas, which are threatening to leak. That's a lot of ghosts. That really is a lot of ghosts. Curious as to why he's getting so many versus the Terran. I get that they're good versus Marines, but I question. How does the Protoss fare against the Zerg? Is it still well? Versus the Zerg, I think it still fares pretty well. The problem is there's now extra units here, such as the siege tank, which is causing... It's going to cause problems for them. So Ultra's doing all the work they can. Just shy of every single Hydra. How many Hydras died in that one volley? That is 4, counted 4 disruptors. All of them got just the most disgusting hits. And we're going to see some damage onto the Nexus here. Both of those carriers just locked on. It's down to almost 75% at this point. The Nexus is going to keep itself alive. Those Widow Mines and Invisible Ghosts cleaning everything up. With such a Marine-heavy composition, the Purple Terran from the top team does have a little bit of a hard time versus this number of Ghosts. The Ghost damage of the Ghost basic attack, of course, deals bonus damage to light units, such as those Marines. We now have Broodlords out for the blue Zerg. Broodlords are usually the beginning of the end. They're great for stacking, they're great for causing ridiculous amounts of problems. They're notorious for causing huge problems for units in direct strike. Yeah, it looks like we do have some Corruptors out, and they will perform very well versus the carriers. Unfortunately, they have to survive long enough to do that, which is kind of hard to do when you have, well, that many Archons on the field. This is looking really bad. That's a lot of Marines, and Marines with DPS. Structures in direct strike deal a lot of damage for their defensive reasons, but they have a hard time staying alive. They really don't have all that much HP. So it makes for a very strong necessity to have your own units on the field. When your units get wiped, the game can end very quickly, and that looks like what top team is trying to do. Actually, Purple Terran managing to get down 3 refineries is quite a rare sight in standard mode, especially in such a competitive environment as the GDSL. I strongly suspect the way this game is trending, that top team is going to go up 2-0 in this. But we shall see. These Corruptors had a fair amount of time to wail away at those carriers, taking most of them down, leaving only 2 up. One of them just shy, just one tiniest little splash damage away from going down. Alas, the danger balls, the disruptors, come in and flatten everything. Is this gonna be it? Surely this is it. There's siege tanks on the base. This is over. Looks like Team GrumpyKittens goes up 2-0. And we're off. Ooh, and we're off to a spicy start. It looks like the Team 1 player, the Terran player for Team GrumpyKittens, has started with a refinery. This is something I accidentally do all the time. And he's going straight tier 2. Okay. All right, I see you. I see what you're doing. Starting refinery is something I do a lot, but that's because I usually play Commander's Mode. In Commander's Mode, it's a normal and, well, just good thing to do. In Standard, it's not. That's normally something you don't do, and I have to do it more so out of reflex if I'm playing Standard. I'm so accustomed to playing Commanders that I autopilot my way into putting down the refinery, but that can cause some serious problems. Remember, in Standard, there are no additional base structures, so your bunker is particularly vulnerable. Usually, it's not going to die if the first player does this, because, well, it's just not going to add up to enough damage. The first starter wave isn't going to be enough to flatten your bunker outright. But if, say, 2 or 3 players don't spawn, then you have some very real problems. Alas, I don't think that is going to be a problem. The first 2 players for Team GrumpyKittens are going with the tech chicken style, holding back, waiting to see where their opponents are, what their matchups are. Of course, Blue knows that his opponent is going to be the orange Protoss. Looks like the other players are going to just tech chicken their way back. Just wait, just hold back, see what their opponents are going, wait till they display their hand, and then build units. Here you can see after Red has shown that he is Protoss and has gone Stalkers, we see Yellow immediately dropping out. with the Swarm Hosts. Curious to see how that's going to work out. I think he's going for Swarm Hosts partially because he's tired of getting slammed by Disruptors. That's Swarm Hosts, a very common response to that. We already see an Infestor out. And Ghosts. Oof. Oof, with the EMP onto the Infestor, that hurts. That hurts a lot. Alright, so we have a Zerg versus Terran, where the Terran is going Mass Ghosts. And here come the Locusts. That's actually going to be rough for the... That's going to be rough for the Stalkers to deal with. He needs to have detection on the field. They're scanning, but of course scans cost money. That's another... That's just 50 minerals down the drain right there, considering you only get about 20 per player for every time they hold their units on the opposite side of the line, and they get that middle income bonus. Ooh. Straight battlecruiser. That's gonna throw someone off. Not even going into Banshees. Just straight battlecruiser. Well, I mean, if Orange is gonna let him get away with it, then I guess why not? That's gonna need a very specific response from Orange out here. These ghosts, of course, just being invulnerable. Or should I say, invisible. But man, this battlecruiser really just raking in the kills. Like, there's no anti-air, so it's just chilling there. Yeah, look at that. He's able to warp it back, keep it in the field, and just constantly add damage. Alright, we'll see how these players deal with this. A typical response for battlecruisers could be something like Stalkers, especially for a low-tech response. As Orange does not have much in the way of technology at this point in time. He's gone up to 2 battlecruisers. Definitely wipes out everything Orange has, by virtue of Orange not being able to shoot back. All he has to worry about is losing the bunker to the underrun, to the units that just run by, which is not that much of a concern right now. It's only a handful of adepts, and his teammate is already spawned and ready to take care of it. He does need to scan to clean up these ghosts, which he does. He manages to clean them up, or at least get his battlecruisers out of there to engage the ghosts. The EMP onto the Infestor hurts. It hurts a lot. But it looks like... yeah, they're not getting this cannon here. Cannon DPS is ridiculous. And that battlecruiser goes down. Both of those battlecruisers go down super quick, despite not having any anti-air from the Zerg wave here. Here come the Stalkers. Stalkers versus Swarm Hosts is such a fun matchup. Let me rephrase. It's a theoretically interesting matchup because both units specialize in staying on the field for a long time. The Swarm Host more of a CG type unit where they just spawn infinite free units for infinite value. Whereas on the other side of the field you have Stalkers, which they're upfront in your face ranged units, but they also don't really deal much damage. Their whole thing is that they stay alive for a long time and slowly tickle things to death. So it's just quite funny to watch an infinite amount of units splash against a unit that specializes in not dying, while also not dealing damage. They just kind of sit there forever. Battlecruisers mixing it up, of course, by being omnipresent and impossible to eliminate. At least not without some very specialized response. This poor damaged battlecruiser. Is he going to get the manual cast off onto the photon cannon? So you could totally just Yamato that photon cannon. Surprised he hasn't tried to save for that. The player who's microing that much. Oh, the carrier switch! Oh, you mad lad. I think they're just styling on him at this point. Like, if you don't have anything that shoots up, like, come on. Come on. From Stalkers into carriers? Sure, Void Rays deal with that quite strongly. Did I see Viking? Okay. The Void Rays deal with the carriers quite well, but I mean, nothing else that these players have deal with the carriers. I think he's genuinely contemplating selling off these adepts to get more Stalkers or more... Yep, there it is. There's the sell. Like, he's got to do something. GrumpyKittens has just straight gone air, and they've taken the bunker because of it. Team 2, the bottom team here, desperately needs to get more anti-air on the field. Yeah, that's what's going on here. You generally want to be very careful selling off your units because you don't get full value back. So if you sell too much or too many of your units, you just kind of lose based on unit value alone. It's like the Stalker versus Immortal argument all over again. Sure, Immortals beat Stalkers, but if you have enough Stalkers, then they lose to... then they beat the Immortals, so... What's better, having more Stalkers or having fewer Immortals? And the question is not always clear. Or should I say the answer is not always clear. In this case, definitely needed to get rid of those Adepts for any amount of anti-air. Ooh, Yamato coming in. Cleaning up a couple of those Void Rays. Definitely a good time to use the Yamato now that there's no major tiny little cannon that you use to snipe out. And there is the EMP on the Infestor. Several EMPs on the Infestor, in fact, which is a questionable use, but as I assume that was the AI doing that, which kind of par for the course. Now these Swarm Hosts not really all that effective anymore. Remember, Swarm Hosts can't hit up. Their Locusts not so good at dealing with air units, so they won't be able to deal with those carriers. And the carriers are part of the Yellow Zerg's wave, or intended wave, his direct counterpart. So it can be a little bit of a concern that those Swarm Hosts won't be able to have any meaningful effect on the red Protoss's wave. And of course, it's pushing into the battle cruisers, which another air unit. The only wave that the Swarm Host can really help against is the Zerg wave, which is all fine and dandy. But that's a really rough spot to be in. This is looking very one-sided of a battle here. Sure, top hasn't been able to decisively close it out, but there's not a whole lot of good solutions for bottom team to play off here. It's like they're stuck in a catch-22 in every scenario. You either lose one way or you lose the other. Which one do you want? Is the kind of situation that bottom team feels like they're in right now. And yeah, now there's damage on the Nexus as all these ground units in the Zerg are left alone and the Corruptors fly harmlessly over them. Of course, the Corruptors quite good versus carriers, so they will do a significant amount of damage. But that's really tough position to be in. A really tough position to be in. A couple more Archons out of red Protoss, and that entire problem goes away. Void Rays, are they gonna clean up these carriers entirely, or no? Carriers are thick. Void Rays come in. Void Rays come out. More Yamatos, the battle cruisers. I will say this: I appreciate the battle cruiser play. I like seeing battle cruisers in direct strike. They're really quite fun. So rare, so difficult to get onto the field without first losing the game. But hey, Blue Terran managed to pull it off, or should I say, Orange Protoss lets Blue Terran pull it off. Nothing like a nice Immortal to clear the bunker while Blue Terran does things like tech up. But that is gonna be it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have our victors of this best of 5 team. GrumpyKittens moves on to the semifinals.